episode 5. Yes, thank you guys all for viewing. I hope I didn't scare anyone off last episode by I watched it and I was like, you know what? I know personally I needed it, and I hope that it resonated with someone somewhere who maybe was also going through it. But I also was like watching you the whole time, and you were like just being so understanding, like such a good friend.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here for it, whatever.
You were just like, okay, girl.
You got this.
You got this. It's okay.
Stay strong.
But as promised, you guys, we did want to talk about finances.
Yes.
And I really think it's an important episode. So moms in general, single moms, or even some moms who now going just into being the breadwinner. I know that's a lot of, different dynamics going into families, and sometimes that's the case, right? You end up being the breadwinner of the family. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about not only the pressures that come with those different roles and scopes of financial planning for the future, really for your children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also too, just like maybe some things that I've done, that Brittany's done, that could possibly help someone, So Brittany does real estate, and she's a fabulous real estate agent. She's been doing it for many years now. And I have worked in the insurance and financial field since 2015. So about a decade of doing that stuff. So I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, sure. So one thing when I was like kind of thinking about this, honestly, like last night and this morning, so I was like journaling and just kind of like going through like, man, what could I talk about? I just want to start with like a baseline that anyone who knows me or, has a little bit of a background to my story. I was a teen mom. When I had Camden, I was 18, and things were not always the way they are. No, literally, my mom was like, what? That's in episode 2, by the way, if you want to revisit her great reaction. But it was hard, and it's kind of funny because what got me thinking about it is we went to one of our friends' house in Gerald just a few weeks ago, just because, and we got together and we had a shrimp boil just because, and we had food for the kids, and she got a water slide for them. And a lot of the moms in our mom circle who have really built themselves up from the ground, they were also teen moms, and we were all kind of like, these kids don't even know.
No, they don't.
They have no clue how good they have it.
Courtney was a teen mom.
Yeah, Courtney was a teen mom. Brianna was a teen mom. I was a teen mom. Was that the Brianna? No, yeah, she was a little bit older. I know, of course, you had your kids later in life too, but I think the bulk of us, and again, not necessarily you have to be a teen mom, but even you starting over as a divorced mom, it's crazy to me that I always look back and I'm like, man, what really could have been, and it was, right? I don't want to like bring any insensitivity to this statement, but what could have been financially devastating, because it was devastating in other ways, you really did just push through it.
I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went from being with someone to next day not being with someone and not having, that financial security that I really needed anymore, like within our relationship as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so it'll definitely make you snap in gear and be like, okay, well, now it's me and the 2 kids, and now I've got to figure this out all on my own. So let's do it.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was more just because I had Cam so young. And again, me and Cayman, we were not in a place to really parent effectively the way we should. At that time, and I mean, I still do, I took on the role of the breadwinner, and I had to figure it out really quickly as well. So, I was still going to school. My lovely mom, Johnny Sue, was like, when I had 1 semester off, and then she was like, you're going back to school. And you know what? I don't want to say that college is the only way to get ahead, because I think about it, and if there was true like career and post-secondary education coaching going on in the high schools today, I would have, if I had someone in front of me saying, you know what, Eddie, like, yeah, you're intelligent, but really it's the way you speak and you're well-spoken. Why don't you go into sales immediately? Girl, I would have got my real estate license or my health and, wealth, or my health and life insurance.
Yeah, for somebody to
and
like,
just
give
gone
you
to
some
sales.
guidance. Like,
Yeah.
No, definitely, because I can tell some people when I meet them, I'm like, oh my God, are you a nurse? Or, or, oh, are you a teacher?
Right. Oh my God.
Just because you can tell, like, where somebody's, like, their profession is the most that they talk about and give advice on. And you're like,
my mom,
okay,
she screams teacher.
So your career is not going to be a dental assistant, right? You need to be a nurse. Like, you talk like a nurse already.
Right.
If somebody would just talk to you like that,
right,
it would make things so much easier. Because at 18, when they're like, pick your destination already at 4 years of college, you're like, I don't know. I just turned 18.
Well,
I don't know.
And even too, so this is where I wanted to start. Besides them being like, here, just pick out of your laundry list, here's who approved you, or you get your letters in the mail. When you then get into college and you're, again, are still a teenager, even though you're legally and technically an adult. I remember being in the financial aid office and signing on these huge loans to make up the difference for my school. Mind you, I got a small scholarship, not a big one, but I got a small one, and to make up the difference, and I had no one beside me. Like, I didn't even really understand what subsidized was, unsubsidized. I didn't understand the fact that, girl, I used to get a refund check from those loans, right? Because I would apply for the max, get it, and then the difference.
And then you would blow it.
Did not know you give that back to the loan.
Thinking that you don't have to pay it back. That's what I know, girl. Everybody's like, free money. I'm like, nah, it's like a credit card. You got to pay it back.
You got to pay it back. And again, so that's a lot of, I think, just before you even become a mom, there's some really big things that we have to look at in the system. That I remember going to college and like the big banks being set up and being like, we'll give you a student credit card. And you're like, oh, well, I don't have a job. They're like, no problem. You're a student, right? And you're like, yeah. And you're like getting like a 30% interest rate on credit cards and you don't even know what an APR is. You don't know what an interest rate is. You're like, how am I going to pay this back? Like, and they used to have the old school like credit card maker machines where they just like, and it was like a printed picture of like the numbers, like it wasn't even perforated, and they would just give it to you right there, and you're like, yeah, $1,000 credit card, and you just
blow it all in one day.
And yeah, you just were like, I'm rich. So I think, and I experienced that, right? But when I had Camden, I really had to then think about the long term, and it's hard to do that when you're surviving. So when I had Camden, I went to Texas State, right? He was going to daycare. My mom worked. I take that back. She still was teaching. For the last bit of that year that I went back. And then she retired from the school district. And then she started at a daycare that allowed her to bring Cam for like 75% off. So I could afford it.
Nice.
So she was like the main head teacher there. And he could have a really small tuition while I was on the waiting list for the Bobcat daycare, because they do have a daycare, and it's like, at the time it was like $100 fee for the application, but there's a very long waiting list. And so I would go to work. I worked at the mall. I also had a second job, during seasonal period of Halloween, because I worked at Spirit Halloween for 6 years. So, 5 months out of the year, I'm working a part-time job. Other than that, I'm working a full-time job at the mall, slinging makeup, selling makeup.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah, just on my feet all day. And then, the reason I stuck at that job so long is because they worked with my schedule. They would allow me to be off on the days like I had to be in class pretty much all day. And I even remember like, I would have like some times where it'd be really long breaks, like 3 or 4 hour breaks in between my classes, and I didn't have enough gas to go home. So I would just sit and chill on campus. Study. I had no money for food. I actually, shout out, I had 2 very good friends who I met at the Halloween store who worked at the cafe there, and they would like give me the leftovers sometimes. Oh. They'd be like, hey, like, we're about to clean up and close up or get ready for like the next time. So they would give me like leftovers and shit.
That's cool.
It was cool. Yeah. I mean, I'd take it. I was hungry.
I got friends in low places.
Right? I mean, to this day, I'm like, man, they were like, this poor girl, she's struggling. Or I would walk down. I think is the Taco Bell still there at the bottom of UAC? Or did they get rid of it? I haven't been.
No, it's still there.
I would walk down there, and that's when you could really get like an 89-cent burrito. So if I had like $1 to my name, I'd be like, fuck it, I'm going to treat myself.
Y'all don't charge for mild sauce, right? Because I ain't got that.
Like that and a cup of water. They give you the little clear cup, so you're not taking soda.
And then you're like, Sprite.
Yeah. So in that time, I was surviving, and I will say it was very hard for me to plan financially and it was really discouraging.
Yeah.
I
You just
remember,
felt like you could never catch up.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I've
remember,
been there.
yeah. I just remember being like, I don't want it. I already knew I was a statistic, which there's nothing against being a statistic, but I didn't want my child to fall into that too because of my decisions. So I was like, there's got to be a way out. There's got to be a better way. And I'll say this. In the time that I started working at Spirit Halloween, I also cleaned dealerships and offices on the side with my aunt. And so I budgeted out my monthly costs for things. And any extra I got went to, like my Spirit Halloween checks, I always knew that was Christmas money because I would never cash the checks because they're good for 90 days. So I would be like, okay, if a check's about to expire, I'll cash it, deposit it. But for the most part, most of the season, I could hold on to those couple of checks and I could just deposit them all in one, and that's how I would get Christmas for Camden.
Yeah.
And here's another like tidbit advice, right? Is that when I would go and cash those checks at my credit union, which I've been with for a very long time, I love my credit union, they would be like, well, we have a holiday loan, Miss Garza, like you could do a holiday loan. And I think a lot of young people, especially moms, it's enticing to get looped into the ability to have funds instantaneously and maybe get those quick satisfactions of, okay, like my bank approved me for a $500 line of credit or a $1,000 holiday loan. Now I can go and blow it and splurge on Christmas, which feels really good in the time.
In the moment.
In the
because
moment.
then you have to pay that plus the interest back.
Right.
And you feel like you're drowning with the interest.
Right. And so I think for me, like the biggest thing was really having to be hard on myself and saying no, even if I saved $1 a paycheck. And there were people in my life at the time who were like, really, $1, what's it going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, but I know that after I budget everything, or if I knew I go to the grocery store and go grocery shopping and be like, I have $190 to spend, which back then, $190 you get a lot of food. And so I'd be like, this is like my main grocery, and anything else in between, I'll get with whatever change I have. But if I like spent $188, that difference would immediately go into a savings account.
Yeah.
Right. And so as I saved over the years, I also really started looking into and exploring the different types of investment, because anyone who has a savings account has to know you're not getting back shit on that account.
No, the interest that they're willing to pay you back is nothing.
Nothing.
I had this bank account for like a year and a half, 2 years, and I got back like 7 cents. I was like, really?
Right. And you have to think about it from a business standpoint, right? Which is really hard sometimes, maybe for moms. I know I'm very like numbers and business oriented, but not everyone is. So when you put yourself in the perspective of you are a CEO, you run Single Moms of Brittany's House Incorporated. Would you think that it makes sense to give somebody $5 of your hard-earned money, especially at the time I was making like $9 an hour, so that is half of my time in an hour dedicated, going to a credit union savings account that is going to give me 7 cents back?
No.
It just doesn't make logical sense.
7 cents. I was just like, are you kidding?
Well, yeah, because you're putting your hard-earned money into it. And again, this is not to shit on banks or credit unions or anything like that, but this is really my baseline, or I guess you could say my soapbox, whatever you want to call it, for exploring the world of investing your dollar and not just saving it. That's what I think really got me ahead. And I thank God for it. And I think part of it was post, after I got further into my education, I had to take a time that I was away from school for a little bit as well. But I found a good job, and I found it at a payday loan company. I started there as an assistant store manager. I worked myself up to a district manager, and then I ended my career there as a regional manager. And when I tell you guys that payday loans are the epitome of never-ending loops of debt, they are the poster child for it. Payday loans are the absolute worst. And I worked for a payday loan company. And that is actually why I ultimately left, because when I got to the tippy top as a regional manager, hearing the things that corporate would say or encourage us to do in what we called like our Make a Friends, which were our customer service trainings with our staff, the assistant managers, the store managers, district managers, it was pushing the refinancing, pushing, oh, you have cash available after they've almost paid off the loan. Pushing like, oh, if you pay the minimum today, you'll save yourself $80. All of those different tactics. It's like, and I remember asking once, well, don't you guys want them to pay it off? Because the store I ran, the reason I got promoted was not only were we profitable, we also were really good in collections. Because, girl, I did old school collections back in the day. Like, you had a list of people who were defaulted in how many days and their name, their phone number, their work number, and you're just, don't call my fucking job. Click. Okay. Call their first reference. Call their second reference. Call their third reference. And it was terrible. But when I would talk to my people in default, I'd always try to be like, I'm here to work with you. I want you to pay it off. So our collections were great, but I got a different feedback from corporate. They're like, we don't care if they fall in collections. We don't care anything about collections. And I would try to tell them, okay, but that's why the store is so profitable, because you got to take care of the front end and the back end.
You have to get your money back somewhere.
Right.
If you're not getting your money back, then you can't keep profiting other people.
Exactly. And so they were like, as long as they're refinancing, as long as they're taking cash back, if they fall off, they fall off, which would just kill me. And so at that time, right, I didn't really know where to invest. And so I'll say that I really started having to reach out. And a lot of that, too, is like generational, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, my mom was a single mom. She didn't understand necessarily where or how to invest her money, where and how to save her money, when to put away and when to take. Like, she just didn't understand those things. And she did have, like payday loans, credit cards, things of that nature that I think really hindered her from meeting that ability to give us a better life, because she got stuck in a loop of debt. And again, easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
So aside from you really budgeting and saving, do not be afraid to say you don't know. Like, if you don't understand, and it's nothing like wrong, like I had a friend who had just started with a huge life insurance company. She now is a manager for a lot of different chains. She's really successful too, and I'm proud of her. I don't talk to her, but I see her on social media, and I'm like, good for you, girl. Like, I knew you would make it. Like, I'm like her silent cheerleader.
Hyping up in the background.
Yes, like, you ever have a friend that you're like, good for you, sister? And she's like, I haven't talked to her in 6 years.
Actually, all of mine. Like, if I see people going through fun stuff on Facebook, I'm like
yeah,
you deserve that.
You deserve it, queen. So yeah, she's super successful, but she started off as just a life insurance agent. She basically, was kind of just trying to get her feet wet and saying hey, I'm doing life insurance and blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I was still living with my parents. We were living in our mobile home. I had the shittiest Hyundai accent. No, actually, yeah, no, I had a shitty Hyundai accent. That's right. And then I got the Ford Fiesta right before I quit. So anyways, I'm like, they were both terrible cars, y'all, basically. And they were financed with terrible lenders. And we'll get to that here in a sec too. But I was like, well, I don't really know why I would need life insurance. I'm young. I was 22. She was like, well, just in case. And, I know you just had your baby a few years ago. And what if something happens? So I did think about that. That's what got me in. I was like, if something does happen to me, I'm the primary breadwinner. But I was upfront with her, I don't know anything about it, so let's meet. So she, myself, and then her mentor at the time with the company, they met with me at a Starbucks. And we went over, getting the life insurance and what I could get. And then her mentor was the one who was like, well, these policies have cash value. So I'm like, what does that mean? I don't want to look stupid.
Yeah, but you have to ask the necessary questions to get the answers that you need. Because if you just sign up for some willy-nilly stuff, you don't know what the hell's going to happen to you.
That's true. Read the fine print. I would put paperwork in front of people at my previous employer and be like, okay, and I try to point out the APR, which was astronomical, how much they're borrowing versus how much they're going to pay back. And they would, and just sign. And I'd be like, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks for your first payment. So I agree with you there. You have to really look at the fine print. And if you don't understand, you ask. So I was like, what do you mean by that? Cash value and all that stuff. And I'm thinking how am I going to pay for something that's going to pay me back? In my head, I just didn't understand it at all. And so she said, I'll do this because I was in really good health at the time. I mean, obviously I was young. She was like, we're going to have someone go out. They're going to like take your blood work, blood pressure. They're going to do like all this medical underwriting, and I'll tell you what you get approved for. And I'll tell you which ones have cash value that I think would fit your budget. And then I'll tell you, you know, basically anything that you're approved for you and your child, because I got some policies on Camden too. And you can decide from there. So she did that like a couple weeks later. And the total for everything was like 80 something bucks. Now, mind you, I was a district manager at that time, so I was making decent money, but nope, I was still fully pretty much supporting Cam on my own, right? And so I'm responsible for my own bills, and 86 bucks was a lot of money. But I knew I had some money in savings, right? And so I calculated if I can afford 40 bucks a month, which was half of the cost, which I could by cutting back on like eating out, getting coffee, getting energy drinks, going drinking after work if my friends want to have a happy hour, and I could pull 40 bucks a month from my savings, what would that total be? And then would I make my money back in the policy within a 5-year radius, because that was when the cash became available, right? Not knowing what the future held for me and my career or financially or my salary. I just knew I had some money stored away that wasn't making shit in my savings.
Yeah.
And this lady showing me an interest rate on money that I'm putting into a policy that somehow still will pay out a full death benefit if something, God forbid, were to happen to me, and I can still take money out of. I'm like, make it make sense. How am I the only one? Is nobody else buying these? Like, what is this, like a secret? Are you being cool with me?
Is this a scam?
Is this a scam? Oh,
Literally.
God, yeah. And that's another thing. See, like, I had family members, because they did not know, be like, Mija, why are you buying a life policy? You're young.
You can die at any age.
You can die at any age.
Literally, you don't have to be old.
And then when I tell them, well, look at this chart she gave me, and this is how much money I can get back at different times, and Cam did blah, blah, they'd be like, those things are all the marketing, what are they called, the MLMs?
Tools.
Or the multi-marketing pyramid schemes.
Oh, yeah.
They'd be like,
schemes.
Yeah, they were like, this is a pyramid scheme. And I was like, maybe it is. But then again, why I encourage anyone out there who is looking at investing, do their research. I mean, it was a very reputable long-term life insurance company. They're not going to go belly up anytime soon. They're still standing. My policies are locked in at that same rate. Mind you, my age and health has substantially changed, right?
Yeah.
And I never borrowed from those policies until last year when I went through my separation. I was like, one, I was afraid that if I didn't liquidate my assets, that he could take them, right?
Divorce.
In our divorce. Yeah. And then two, I think another thing was like, I need to just have all the cash on hand that I can on me. So I went in, I logged in the portal, and I called my agent, because it's changed since, right? Like I said, the original girl I knew from high school has gone on to huge, wonderful things. So I have another agent who I meet with twice a year, and I told her, like, what's going on, and that I need to borrow the cash. And she said, okay, but then in the new year, we're going to revisit, and you've got to get another policy set up. And I agree with her totally 100%. But that was 2016, what is that, like 8 years into the policy? If I got in 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 8 years into the policy, it was like almost $6,000. Tax-free money.
Oh, dang.
Like,
you would just have to pay.
They just take it. Well, one of them, they take.
Capital gains.
Yeah, capital gains. One of them, they take out of your death benefit from the one I borrowed, because this was total, right? I have several policies. The other one, I have an index universal life policy, which is you still get paid out the same face amount. Those policies are a little bit more expensive, but you still get paid out the same face amount, and you can borrow whatever cash value is available, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, that's what I'm saying. Like, and those are the one I have, at least, is market based. So I just pulled out, what I could when I did. And I think for me, that was like really a moment where I was like, this is why I chose to invest. Because if I had just been saving just solely saving, there's no way it would have amounted to that. I think maybe in that 7 years, what was in my savings would have totaled like $30.
I was about to say it wouldn't have been very much.
Hell no, sister.
They don't like to give any money back.
No, they don't. You know what I mean? So that kind of that whole interaction led me into a career in the insurance field as a broker, where I did insurance for huge companies, specific to the Medicare industry. I'm still now in the insurance field. Same thing, government sector, just different. I do it for SCA, and we do some commercial, but usually SCA and DBA contracted employees. So I got into that job because for me, a light bulb went off. I was like,
you knew
first of all,
you.
Yeah, well, I was like, first of all, how much is this bitch making off this policy? Because she pulled up in the nicest car. Her nails were done. I just remember seeing her like this glamazon. Like, I was like, I want to be like you when I grow up. I'm sorry, what about my policy? Like, it was just like, and I was like, she's got to be making good money. And at the time, working from home really wasn't a thing. So she's like, yeah, I work from home mostly, but I come out and do this. And I'm like, help me. Yeah. And I literally was at the time bouncing around between 18 stores between Kyle and College Station, working like a dog, like just trying my best to make it, trying to save for a home. And so I was like, I've got to do something. So I took a chance and I went into sales. And that gig originally paid $10 an hour. $10. Okay. So mind you, I'm going from a salary back in 2018 of like $55,000, which wasn't bad back then, to $10 an hour. But I knew there was a possibility for commission that was pretty good. And that job is probably where I've made some of the most money I've ever made in my life. Like, truly.
Your past job or this one?
No, not this one. My 2 past jobs when I was doing Medicare brokering. It was a grind. Like, I was working 10-hour days. I was on the phone constantly. I was keeping up with my sales constantly. Just making sure it was a sales job, right? That's essentially what it is. You can call a broker, but at the end of the day, they're just shopping for you. They're telling you out of all the companies they represent, who they think's the best for you, medical wise, and then price wise, right? So that's what I did. I was a nice term for a salesperson is always a consultant, right? I was a salesperson.
An insurance consultant.
An insurance consultant. I was a salesperson, y'all. That's just, there was a gong in the back and everything. Yeah, it just was what it was. But you know what? I did make a lot of money there. And in that time, that was the year that we bought our house. That was another investment that I know it's a lot harder these days. And I think this will be good for us to, kind of go over to what your recommendations are. But back in 2018, the down payment on my home was $10,000. And that was on my home and my land. And we got everything for $250,000 flat.
Dang.
I mean, just they were covering all the costs and the fees. Our interest rate is in the 2s. Like, it was just a very different time. So,
right before Rona.
Right before Rona, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, here's the thing, right? I had saved that $10,000 from 2013 when I had Cam to 2018. So what is that? 5 years of me nickel and diming and saving, budgeting. The biggest trip we went on in that time was we took my mom to Louisiana for her 50th. We rented a van, and I actually got the van super cheap because when I was a regional manager, they would hook us up with, who's the green,
Hertz?
Not Hertz, the other one.
Enterprise.
So the Enterprise guy was like, dude, you need to set up an account because then you'll get points and your company's paying for the car. And so I was like, okay. So we got the car pretty much for free because it was on my personal points, right? And we went to Louisiana, and that was like the biggest trip I had ever really done in 5 years because
You're busy.
I also knew the long-term goal. I was busy saving, but I also was like
not wanting to spend money.
Yeah, I was tight.
I was so tight.
I was a tightwad. I was like, hell no, there's food at the house.
Oh, I still do that.
Yeah. I'm like, food at the house. So my 3 main points are, you got to save and budget, right? When and where you can, and then invest. And then the last thing is take a chance. Because again, a lot of, and I don't think it necessarily should be this way, but a lot of people who are in those higher positions within companies or big businesses, or when you look at like brokers in the stock market, it's predominantly men. And one thing I've realized is that men will make a business decision like that because it's almost like there's something in the air for them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, things are looking right, they're feeling right, the money's right, the time is right. Fuck it, let's do it. Let's invest it. Let's go all in.
Young girls are like, I got questions.
Like, ask your questions, but they got hesitations.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, that's why you're like, I got questions.
Yeah, you and
you want to know the long term, like, end game, like what the hell is going to happen.
And
yeah.
sometimes you won't always see it.
Nope. And you just have to either trust it or don't, but trust your guts, ladies. It may hang over a little bit, but trust it. Okay?
I'm dead. Listen, my hangs over a lot of bit, so I guess I do trust my gut though. And so when we bought the house, Star was only 20, right? How old was I in 2018 if I'm going to be 30? How old was I?
I was 28. How old are you right now?
I'm going to be 30 this August.
Okay, so you're 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
So you were 24.
I was 24 and Star was 22. And I needed someone at the time. Girl math. I needed someone at the time to co-sign for me because they really wanted just a second person. They were like, yeah, your income's good.
Yeah, but you probably didn't have enough credit, right?
No. And so they wanted someone else on there.
I was about to say, that's the only thing I'll chip in since we're already at 30 minutes. But yeah. Like, I will go on that one. So in just a minute.
Yeah. So they were like, we need a second person. And everyone thought me and Star were crazy because they're like, well, how are y'all going to buy a home together? What if you guys grow up and grow apart? Which, by the way, we still live together in our home and on our land. But I told Star, I was like, just trust me. We got to do it now. I have the money now. We have a lender right now.
Yeah, if we don't do it now, it's not going to happen.
And I thank God every day that we invested because now, I mean, we've looked into selling and we have some cash that we could get out of the home. If we sold, we'd still walk away with a decent amount of cash. We're not looking to do that because interest rates are terrible. But I think, like I said, you know, like, or more like Brittany said, you won't always know it, but you'll feel it. And if it feels right, do it. Go with it because you may look back and give yourself the biggest thank you. Like, holy shit, I did the best thing. I've secured a home for me and my children, which honestly, to be frank, there's no way I'd be able to do it in this time.
The interest rates are terribly high. Unless you're a veteran, then you get like with your VA loan, then you get a better interest rate. But it's not, in the 3s and 2s like it was back then.
Hell
because
no.
Ever since Rona, everybody came in and bought up all of our housing and stuff like that. And so it leaves Texans with not very many options or extremely expensive options only.
Yeah. So, I agree. I mean, what is the percentage that you see of sole incomes getting approved? I don't want to say single moms, but sole incomes getting approved.
Sole incomes are usually getting approved around like $250,000 to $300,000 for a home loan, just depending on their job. Okay. So like if they can make 3 times the rent payment on something like that, then and their credit's at least a 620, because that's you only need a 580 on your credit score, but that's like the worst interest rate. So like the better credit score and like payments that you have made on things before like that, whenever a lender sees that stuff, that's when you're going to get a better rate.
So what is the worst? Like, what's the worst case scenario? You're barely making it with the credit. You maybe have a decent income.
Well, you also need money saved up so that way they can see, like, if we get her into this house, she only has $1,000. Like, that's not going to cover, the next 2 mortgages just in case. But for that reason, they give you your first 30 days for free, basically, because you already put like a down payment and things like that, and they don't want you to have to worry about a payment also right when you move in. But if you're working on your credit score, it's rough at first, but if you get a secured credit card at your bank, you can ask them if they do that. Some do, some don't. But it's basically a credit card with your money loaded.
Right, I was going to say you have to put money first, right?
Yeah, so they'll take it from your debit account or savings account and they'll put it on that card. And then you only want to use like 10% of the card. So say you put $300, That means you only want to use $30 at a time.
Yikes.
So like put $30 for gas.
Okay.
And then you'll get the bill in the mail, pay the $30 back, and then you're right back up to $300. And that'll escalate your credit score so quickly because it sees you're borrowing your own money and you're paying your own money back. And like I said, the better credit score you have, the better interest rate you have, and it can coagulate, with your monthly income to make for a better payment plan for you in the end. But so me, yes, saving is also my same advice. If you're able to save, I know some people are just barely scraping by, and that's totally fine. Like as long as you can make it, But if you do have that wiggle room where you can save, even just $50 a paycheck, $100 a paycheck, by the end of like a year or two, you never know how much you can have to put down on your dream home or dream piece of property, anything like that.
Well, I think too, if there's, like I said, I've been in the situation before too where I was scraping by, and sometimes it was like $1 I was putting away. And bitch, that may have been $1 I found on the floor at HEB. So like,
hey, $1 is $1.
$1 is $1.
Yeah.
But I will say this, like if you are in that situation, then the next best thing you can do is invest your own time. Invest your time in yourself. Spend your time. I know it's easy, especially like I've been there where I feel so down about where I am financially or just circumstances wise in life that it's easy to like sit in front of the television and like watch a ton of TV or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like whenever I got separated, I picked up a second job. So like while my kids were at school, if I wasn't showing houses, I was helping at the middle school. And that helps supplement income so much. And so where I still do it just for the fun of it,
right.
Mainly. But as a single mom, I was just like, okay, I'm going to have to do more than just this one job because I've got to do this on my own now, not two incomes. So yeah.
Right. And even if you don't have the ability to work a second job, and a lot of people will be like, here's my thing. I'll just say this, my experience. Don't let someone knock you who's not tried it. Yeah. If you're spending your time
I had to
saying,
do it while they were at school.
Right.
Just because they were going to be at school anyway. So that was basically my nanny while I was working.
Right. But even too, if you're spending time then investing in yourself by, instead of watching TV, listening to a podcast about financials. Not this one, because I mean, we're just trying to baseline, give it out there. Yeah. But there's got to surely be something, or even like reading a book that's going to be like things that kind of get you in the mindset to be healthy and productive.
For my future. Like,
right.
Things like that.
Yes. Or you know what? I'll tell you this too, straight up. Even if you can't afford a policy, agents meeting with you is fucking free.
Yes, it is.
It's free. Just be like, can I meet with you? And you know what? A good agent will, because they see you too as an investment. They share that same mindset. Hey, you're not a customer today. You're not a client today.
You're a friend today.
You're a friend today, mm-hmm. And I'm sharing information with you that's valuable, but you may be in the future. And so let me pour into you this information. I want you to hold on to it, because not only will it be useful to you in planning, yeah. and it's you yourself investing time-wise as well, but when you get there, you'll remember that person.
Well, that's what I do with giving real estate advice.
Yeah.
And I just make sure I give the best I can. They tell me like a little bit of their situation, and then I give them advice, and then a couple months later, they're like, hey, we're ready to buy now. I'm like, hey,
right.
See? Like,
or even if it's like a year or so down the road.
Yeah. And that's what almost every single person that I've ever given advice to has like listened to it, followed through, and then came and was able to purchase a house.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It also takes asking a lot of questions. Like if you know somebody's in that field, ask them all the questions. If they don't want to answer, they don't like their job. Anytime somebody talks to me about real estate, I'm like, actually, what are you doing?
Same. Insurance, like to this day, I still keep up with like what the Part B Medicare premium has gone up to. And I think actually they started going back and taking that from the Social Security checks, or actually, no, opposite, giving it back, but then you're responsible for paying it. They always go back and forth, but I keep up with those things because I know that I've had people in my life be like, hey, do you kind of, and I'm like, yeah, for the most part, I can tell you the gist of it and kind of guide you or point you in the right direction.
I'm like, girl, I haven't done dentistry in like 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. And no, less than that. So probably like 5 years, because I did it while I was still doing real estate. But I still have people who are like sending me pictures of their kids' teeth and being like, what's going on?
What is this? You're like, that is a cavity, Susan.
I'm like, they need to go to the dentist and you need to start using floss, okay?
But yeah, I don't
we can go ahead and...
don't let people like shit on you for doing the self-help books, or feel like, oh, I feel basic, like, just this, or how is me, even exercising, because health is wealth. Like, I'm a big advocate for that. How is me, like, putting my health first going to really help me financially in the spot I'm at? In the long run, it will. All of it. It'll come together. The time that you've invested putting yourself in the position to be able to learn as much as you can, do as much as you can. When you're active, guess what? When you get to that spot you want to get to, you will need a different level of energy. You'll have to pull in from that inner strength. And the only way you'll know how to pull from that, I guarantee, well, maybe not the only way, but a better way is if you invest in your health.
Yeah,
you work out.
You feel good. If you feel good about yourself, you can act good about yourself and know that you've got this.
Right. Yeah. And I had people in my life, family members and even someone I called friends at the time, be like, you're not, like, kind of like, not that I wasn't going to do it, but that, like, almost like I was dreaming way too far off. Like, being a homeowner was way too far off. The policies that I was buying were just like me throwing away money. I don't think it is, because even if they're just term life policies, I don't want to leave my kids with zero, with nothing. No. I want to leave them with a little bit of something, enough to bury me at least. But I think for me, it's like you being able to really get real with yourself when it comes to financials and credit, right? Like, get real with yourself and say, where am I?
And where do I want to be?
And where do I want to be?
Yeah. And
how do I get there? The people that are there, what do their lives look like? Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. I start my day at 5 a.m. This bitch is up before me. She's usually messaging me. I'm like, why are you awake? My alarm goes off in 5 minutes. And it's not to, like, kind of foster a culture of always working. No, there's a place for rest and restoration. But when you are the sole provider, which a lot of single moms are, right? Then you have got to show up every day, which means you got to be mentally ready. You've got to be physically ready.
You got to be fed.
You've got to be fed. Slept.
Yes. Everything.
Right? As much as possible. And the little bit of time, because we know you don't have a lot of time. I don't. Brittany doesn't. So a little bit of time you do something that's going to really be something that's a gift to your future self.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're going to sit there and read, like, I read a lot of Jordan B. Peterson. I actually saw him when he came in March or April in Austin, and it was awesome. But even that, and he doesn't talk about financials. He of course, was at Harvard, and he's really around psychology and the human dynamic. But that alone was like, there is more, and I could do more, and this is how I could do more. And it was a lot of me just investing in that self-reflection. There's times where I listen to music in the morning, but 90% of the time I'm listening to something that I feel like may help me in my life or my day. Yeah. And if I don't know what's being said or talked about, I will definitely research it.
Yeah. Well, and, like, to close this out, I also feel like what really sucks about the whole, like, savings and putting back is that sometimes you have to give up things that you love to do, like, but don't necessarily need, like your hair, your nails, like tattoos, like anything that you could give up, not eating at the house and instead always eating out. Like, if you just factor in, like, all your bills for the month and your income, and you see that you're only spending like a third on your bills, but you're still broke by the end of the month, that's where you need to factor out where all that other money's going.
Right.
And I feel like that would help. That helps you so much. That's what I had to do. Just because I'm like, okay, unless I break it down for myself, I'm just always going to think that I'm super broke.
I agree. Like, and if you get in, like, credit card or loan debt, don't be ashamed. It happens, especially when you're a single mom.
Yep.
And the one thing I want to leave you with is, if you plan to attack those things one at a time to knock them out, start with the highest interest rate. Pay off the highest interest rate. I know it sounds crazy, and it's very, what's the word? Time consuming, but also, like, it can be kind of scary, right? For layman's terms, it can be scary that you're like, this fucking loan has a 65% interest rate, which they exist, right? How am I going to possibly do it? You do it one bite at a time. You get that knocked out. You pay the minimum on everything else, which means you cannot touch those cards or loans or anything. And then once that's paid off, That's it. It's to the side.
Trash.
Do not close that account.
No. Yeah, you could keep like, actually, you want to keep like 10%
Right.
on it instead of closing it all the way out, just because it still shows that, like, even if you use it, you're paying it, and so your credit will
Right.
skyrocket.
And that's credit cards, guys, not payday loans
no,
or
this is only like
cash
credit card
advances.
things like your Kohl's card, Target
Right.
card, Chase
Right.
card.
Keep a small balance and then go on to the next highest interest rate and then the next one and the next one and the next one and knock them out one by one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I hope this had some...
a little bit of information.
Yeah, and if you need more information, I mean...
Just reach out.
Reach out. Brittany, like I said, she'll talk to you because she loves her job. She loves real estate.
I do.
If you have questions about insurance or investments, I will try my best. I'm not going to say... Like I said, a lot of my insurance career has been targeted towards the government sector, and kind of making sure that those folks are taken care of. Like what government?
Like the military,
or like I don't know, like the government. I do shit for like
that word. It irritates military.
It doesn't. I'm like I don't know. Well, okay, so like government insurance, right? So I'll try my best, but I can share with you what I've learned, what I've done, and maybe that'll help because we're all just trying our best.
We're trying to make it.
We are.
In the motherhood.
In the, what did you say? Ain't no hood like motherhood. And sometimes it's just ghetto. It's just ghetto. And you just got to power through it. But you know what? Do you remember that old song? Moving on up to the east side. That'll be you one day, girlfriend. So don't, even though it can feel like you're stuck, you're truly not. And that'll kind of touch on to our next episode where we want to talk about the importance of support. Women support, moms supporting moms, women supporting women, and how that's impacted both me and Brittany. Till next time, y'all.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.